The much-loved enraged enormous intense sun systematically semi-blinded me as I enviously and thoughtfully stared directly into its remarkably attractive powerful center, consciously wondering what had become of my meaningless urban unfinished tragic terrible worthless life. Futuristic symmetrical clouds of humiliating linear faint distant half-forgotten aggressive childhood unnatural memories agonizingly came vaguely and eagerly unsatisfyingly faded dramatically away before I could significantly mentally grab or even profoundly hold onto any of them for a mere majestic bitter magical split second of pleasure or profound mind-expanding meaningful robust purpose. I non-stop hatefully and psychotically dwelled on the undesirable logical consistent calculatable fact that my miserable outrageous current repulsive sticky unfortunate situation was abundantly less than ideal and more importantly financially unsustainable. I had to psychotically subconsciously as well as automatically unconsciously abusively blackmail force myself to walk the obnoxious rugged numberless gang-controlled combative crackhead accepting filled endless perpendicular streets for a tremendous amount of never-ending countless agonizing tedious hours all the while never taking my inquisitive weary watery painful burning eyes off of the beloved enraged maddening complex sun that mysteriously hung in the peaceful deep blue sky the entire mentally recorded time. I coordinated aggressively and zigzagged as I tearfully crossed dank feces-covered ubiquitous shady streets and I also carelessly and victoriously took a gleaming repulsive graffitied-up public anti-hipster bus all across the I can't see it but I know something awful is happening nearby kind of town. All the while I silently and patiently burned my bloodshot swelled-up eyes gazing into the sun just as a mentally retarded incest family-born moth to a hypnotic dancing flame would instinctively do while I tried to hypothetically catch and possibly retain just a single emotional teenage repressed cynical vulgar memory that would make my defeated unbecoming boring life worth secretly or unsarcastically living any longer. A tiny yellow-skinned man was hailing a cab. He stopped and asked me why I was staring into the sun. I rambled off some German nonsensical hardcore slurs and I quickly hijacked his cab using the man's confusion as cover. Take me to a place where I can be at one with myself, I demanded of the driver as I extended my middle finger out the window to the slant-eyed fashionably dressed Asian gentleman that was now standing on the curb with his mouth gaping wide open and his hairy non-hygienic hands dramatically extended really high into the moist humid unsavory air. We drove through many typical black society type scenes after mixed biracial trans cisgendered fan fiction type scenes seemingly on a endless never-ending continuous looping repeat, randomly different sexy yet sometimes disfigured unbearable faces with each and every excruciating endless passing mile. All of these different places mixed with all of these different faces each have their own unique story to express to me, I thought. Wondering to myself if any of the things that I was witnessing could show me how to find what I was seeking, it dawned on me that I was no longer fixated on the sun anymore and the trance has somehow been broken. But how? What happened? My meaningless already sold to the devil soul, wept, as my semi-perverted uncensored cryptic mind realized that nothing I could ever see with my very own ever-distorted dry sun-baked crispy eyes will ever be able to show me the countless amounts of irrational absurd long-winded 100% perfect answers that I wish to unbiasedly and reverse hypothetically witness myself. While mumbling biracial obscenities quietly under my breath I casually ordered the driver harshly to stop the car 5 times. My more than implied wish was cautiously granted only after banging on the thick filthy glass that kept me and this other man apart to the iconic beat of "We Will Rock You." The look in his confused deep dark black eyes told me that he didn't have the guts to try to stop me from my now in progress bi-curious yet mostly platonic tri-gender feminist approved partially semi-erotic peep show. He was undoubtedly never in any immediate ill-intended danger as I expressed to him strongly numerous times. The amount of joy that I got from sitting in the back seat of that cab only made the folding of my clothes while neatly stacking them on the seat more than enough to inspire my heart to give this man everything that I had. Quickly I opened my door and dashed from the mostly minorities used cab, half pacing myself as I awkwardly sprinted across the street and into an alley that was excessively long and objectively undoubtedly deserted. As I kneeled down behind a wet urine-covered rain-cast trash receptacle my heart was racing, only occasionally leveling out when I remembered to use my backwoods secret Buddhist breathing techniques. I watched as people passed by on the sidewalk in the distance for about 20 and a half long paranoid-filled minutes, Suddenly a ghastly large misshaped familiar face spontaneously appeared, shaking her shit as she awkwardly and clumsily strutted down the tremendously busy ill-colored public filthy piss-stained walkway. I deep throat whistled short burst of my extremely loud underrated painful mating call Miss Patty's way, and Miss Patty excitedly and fearlessly came near. Miss Patty was barely dressed and was also an extremely well-known $20 $5 minimum type prostitute with a very extensive long felony heavy multi-state spanning mostly violent but sometimes merely ill-mannered criminal record. Miss Patty and I kind-heartedly chatted for a steady bit before she obnoxiously gave me the cheap flimsy dull bottom half of her mundane breezy attire to imperfectly cover my distinct scrawny juvenile bite-sized pathetic manhood. We rapidly skipped and courageously shouted in the cluttered disgusting streets as we painstakingly recounted all of our semi-consensual bi-curious past awkward sexy adventures, and she magnificently told me all about her various new glorious large gunshot wounds that now excellently cover her colossal fresh jagged infected spiteful junkie taboo track marks. In a matter of no time we had joyously made our way to Miss Patty's place of illegal discounted disgusting business transactions. The horrific place that lay at the heart of this foul woman's livelihood smelled like a wet musky basement filled with pungent oily half-digested corn-infused dense turds and massively tangled smoky clumps of lice-infested burning pubic hair. My half-shut stinging red begging for mercy eyes, my inflamed nose and vomit-filled throat all in unison demanded that my brain tell my shaky weak wobbly leg muscles to leave this den of ridiculous amounts of over-obvious blatant past and present Satan-influenced filthy sin. I could see in Miss Patty's eyes as mine made contact with hers that she didn't understand why I was backing my way towards the door. I glared at Miss Patty as my mind tried to figure out if it was learning something or if it was in full-blown meltdown mode instead. The door slammed against the wall as I threw it open to make my exit. I staggered down the sidewalk as far as I could possibly manage before I found myself standing on the edge of the sidewalk with one foot in the street and the other foot resting on the edge of the curb. I convinced myself that this was a divinely given ultimatum and that the time for me to choose my fate was now. My entire day flashed before my eyes, showing me nothing that would answer the questions that I have been looking for. The visions of the scene that would result at this very location if I chose to walk directly into oncoming traffic put me at peace because I knew that I could personally write the last page of my life story. A glimmer of hope entered my eye as the question of why hasn't Miss Patty yet laid herself down in front of an 18-wheeler that would smear all of her bloody guts, piss and shame all along the highway. This question may have not given me much insight into the answers that I seek, but it at least gave me a reason to live another day while I try to figure out how she could possibly press onward with her more than absurd, worse than mine could ever be life. My hand waved in the air cheerfully as the cab that I decided to hail instead of causing a scene pulled up to the street right where my foot used to be. The Asian man from earlier that day came up behind me and stabbed me in my lower left butt cheek, as to not kill me but to merely show me that he meant business. I started to scream German nonsensical hardcore slurs in his general direction while looking at the lamppost across the street, but to no avail this time. He wasn't fazed in the slightest by any of my shit. I backed away while expressing my intent to let him win this one. As I stood on the sidewalk mostly naked while wearing the obviously designed for advertising ripped and tattered prostitute garment, the blood pouring out of my ass cheek ran down my leg and pooled below me at my feet. The current bloody and chaotic spectacle in my mind's eye that my brain was trying to process reaffirmed that my life was complete shit, and that as long as that fat woman Miss Patty is still breathing I have a reason to give this life another day to explain its purpose for my existing.